We live in a culture where our happiness and acceptance seems to be measured by our success. But this can lead to a pressure-driven, anxious treadmill to achieve whatever we define as success. Is this really the best recipe for a great life? Well, today's guest is Aaron Tredway. He joins us from Cleveland, Ohio. Aaron is a former professional soccer player, a coach, and he's the pastor of Fellowship City Church. He's recently authored a book called Don't Miss Your Life, The Secret to Significance. Aaron, welcome to Bridge City News.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. Our culture seems to judge people on their level of success. And a recent example for us is Canada's men's soccer team was just eliminated from the World Cup. Now, all those years of work and no winning results, there's a lot of disappointment. But would Canada and maybe the players and coaches be better humans if they would have won at least a game?
Not from my perspective, but it's national pride, and one thing to bear in mind about that is Canada hasn't been in the World Cup for quite some time, so just making it to the World Cup is a huge achievement, and there's many countries that are thinking to themselves, I'd love to be where Canada is.
That's right. Even just to be on the pitch is amazing. So let's start things off with dealing with disappointment on the road to success. What do you have for us in that regard?
Yeah, I think disappointment is a common thing because, it's like I tell my 6-year-old, you can't win every game. You don't sign every business deal, you don't get everything right. And I think, as humans, just in our nature, we know that. So, for me, I started to achieve some of what the world says is success. And I found that even when you do achieve it, that success can't satisfy the deepest longings of our soul.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know in chatting with between parents and children, let's say, about their losses and their wins and successes, does this quest for success maybe keep us on a hamster wheel, always wanting more and more?
Yeah, I came across this idea called the hedonic treadmill. And it's this idea that innately we all have certain things that we desire. We want certain things and we think we need certain things. And so we start to strive towards them. And hopefully maybe you achieve them and they bring some measure of satisfaction. But ultimately it goes around to, that satisfaction fades. And it's like you just said, it keeps you on this treadmill of desire. And the question is, how do you get off the treadmill?
Well, that's a really good question. And it's so important to read. And in your book, you say that the significance should be one's target. Can you explain the difference between success and significance?
Yeah, for me, I was for so long, for so much of my life, especially as a professional athlete, striving for the next win or the next deal, the next kind of, the car that I would drive, and just these things, these physical things of the world. And I always tell people, nothing wrong with making money, nothing wrong with driving a nice car, as long as those things don't have a grip on your life. You can have those things as long as those things don't have you. And so for me, once I started to attain some of the things that I really felt like I wanted, I started to realize that they weren't satisfying. Maybe there was a better target. And as I read scripture, I believe that God is talking about his significance, that we were created to live for his purposes, for his fame. Kind of like Isaiah talks about, that we're all like grass and our glory fades quickly, but the glory of God, it lasts forever.
Well, those are very great pieces of advice and really good for us to keep in mind of what we're focusing on, I guess, right? So as it's been said, you turn in the direction of where your focus is. So from your experience, how does one pursue significance?
Yeah, I think there's some real simple yet tangible steps to doing that. As I read scripture and I learn more about Jesus, I think one of the key fundamental building blocks is that one of our greatest pursuits would be to become rich in the things of God. not just rich in the things of the world, but to really steep our lives in the things of God. That for me, that's kind of step number one. It's that foundational building block. And beyond that, there's really just a few more things from my perspective. To steep ourselves in the things of community, to really strive to do life one with another. If you're doing life with God and sharing life with each other. And then for me, this was the big turning point, that I would live to give my life away. For so much of my life, I was kind of living to see what I could get. And for me, I think if you want to live for significance, it has a lot to do with what you can give away.
Wow, that's really good. We're going to have to talk about team sports and the impact of that. But I wanted to ask you first, on your personal success as a professional soccer player and a coach. And from your bio, you even climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. How did these accomplishments maybe change your perspective from success to significance or a relationship with God?
I love that. Love that question. Again, it's back to that idea that it's no problem to have success as long as that thing doesn't have its grip on your life, that it would be this all consuming, pursuit in your life. I call it the target. Like, what target are you aiming at? And for me, like you said, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and, had a few other successes in life. But when I kind of reached the summit, so to speak, especially Mount Kilimanjaro, I think that the important thing to realize is that thing won't ultimately give you what you really need inside. And so for me, it was to really root myself, my identity, my target, my pursuit in aiming at significance.
Wow, that's really good. It changes our perspective on what is fleeting and passes away, like the grass that you talked about, and having that firm foundation of that relationship with God. I just wanted to touch on the sport component of your life and the life of so many others. I know for much of my career in broadcasting, I was around different sport teams, and I certainly noticed the benefits of being part of a team, which kind of fits with your last answer. How do you relate maybe what sport has done for your life to your Christian life, and maybe being a better servant for the Lord or your family?
So many great lessons, life lessons that you can learn on a sports field. Not to say that you can't learn them outside of sports, but I love, I help to look after a sports ministry called Ambassadors Football. We use soccer, the global football, to connect with people and really do whole life evangelism all around the world. Again, you can learn those lessons outside of sport, but there's something amazing about having to work together with people and being in this incubator where you experience all of life's emotion in soccer for 90 minutes. In just 90 minutes, you can get all of the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. And, 1 minute I'm celebrating and the next I'm mad.
It is so true. And there's so many rough edges that are knocked off of us when we're in team sport. And it is a great experience for sure. I want to stick with the child-parent relationship for just a moment. What can parents teach their children about in this quest for significance, or maybe where do parents even start?
Man, that is a very relevant question for me, as I've got a 6-year-old soccer player, just started to, and just because I was in soccer, it doesn't mean, that I'm more or less passionate. I'm passionate. I want to see my son succeed. And, he's recently gone through this little spell. He's playing on an 8-year-old team. And as a dad, I'm like, come on, man, let's, and I've been self-reflecting on the things that I teach it. Is it really what I live? As I'm standing on the sideline as a parent, I'm getting all emotional about if he's not performing to the level that I think he should be performing at. And I think for me, the lesson, and the reason I say it's relevant, because I've really been trying to filter these emotions through scripture, and understand that, he has been created uniquely, hand sewn by our Father in heaven, just as I was, and God has a path for him. And I'm here simply to help steward that along, whether it's in sports or soccer or not. That's a great privilege. So just trying to learn from the things that I say, I'm still in a process too.
I totally get that. You're out there on the sidelines and you want to kick some tires and light some fires, and your son's just having an off day. The struggle is real. Absolutely.
Or he's just out there having a good time. And I think he should be playing harder. I think he should be more committed. And he just wants to, hey, I'm having fun.
Totally. That's good. It's priorities, right? But so you write that in your book that Jesus based happiness on being blessed rather than success. What does this reveal to us about God's will for our lives?
Yeah, I think that it reveals quite a lot. It's an interesting way to open the most famous sermon that Jesus ever preaches. It's called the Sermon on the Mount, and he climbs up this mountain and he's got a few hundred people gathered around him. And he opens with this line, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And I think to myself, blessed or blessed are the poor in spirit. Well, I don't want to sign up to be poor in spirit. Blessed are the persecuted, blessed are the downtrodden. And you're thinking to yourself, how does this actually work? What is Jesus saying? And I think he's really in that little, portion of the Sermon on the Mount, talking about where we find satisfaction and true peace and joy. And the things that we really desire in life come from the hand of God, not in the tangible things that we gain in this world.
Right. That's really good. It kind of reminds me of the Apostle Paul writing that contentment with godliness is great gain. And I like to read the Stoics, and one philosopher, Seneca, said, "The happy man is satisfied with his present situation, no matter what it is." Could you talk about maybe contentment as part of this journey with the Lord?
Yeah, that's really good because I pastor a church in an influential area, and I've got a lot of highly educated, quote unquote, successful people sitting in my congregation every Sunday, and I think it's difficult in the culture we live in today to know contentment. It's kind of like we always, no matter what you have, you think like the grass is always greener. And I think that one thing that Jesus talks a lot about is that true contentment is found in the Lord alone. It's not found in the next deal. It's not found in the next degree or the next title. Again, nothing wrong with pursuing those things as long as they're not our ultimate goal.
Right. Makes perfect sense. Makes me think of the rich young ruler. And I think in your book, you talk about that God blesses us as we give our life away. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I that makes me think of that story, the rich young ruler, where the Jesus says to the guy, two words you never want to hear from God: "You fool." Like, you're so foolish. You thought that you were going to find everything that you were looking for in the stuff of the world. And I was that fool for a long time. I once saw Jim Carrey. He received the Golden Globe for Best Male Actor in a Motion Picture. He gets up in front of all his peers, his colleagues, and really the whole onlooking world. And he starts his speech. He says, "I wish everyone could become rich, famous, and get everything they ever wanted so that they could understand it's not the answer."
Wow. That is excellent. I've got to ask you this. What would be that main takeaway from those who read your book that you would love for them to grasp a hold of?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, this is a real simple book. It's all about finding a worthy goal for your life. What are you ultimately trying to achieve? And for me, I'm trying to achieve the significance of God. I want his fame and his name to be lifted higher through my life. And I think he gives us all certain platforms and certain opportunities, no matter what job you do, no matter if you're a stay-at-home mom, we all have different spheres of influence to make Christ known.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Aaron, this has been a great conversation and a delightful topic. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. God bless you.
That was Pastor Aaron Tredway. He is the author of Don't Miss Your Life, The Secret to Significance. That book is available at aarontredway.com. For all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Michael Clausen. Thanks for watching and have a great night.